At my sister's wedding, my parents blocked me at the entrance and said, "You're not invited." I spotted my sister from afar, smirking, but I kept quiet and turned away. The next day, they showed up sobbing, pleading for help. I calmly said, "Try asking one of your guests." My name is Sam, and at 28, I thought I had a pretty good handle on things. But then, my own parents blocked me from attending my sister Audrey's wedding. Blocked me. Standing there outside this ridiculously luxurious country club in my carefully chosen navy dress, gift in hand, my dad's face appeared. "You're not on the guest list," he said, cold as ice, while my mother couldn't even look me in the eye. The air just left my lungs. How could my own sister not want me there? How could my family betray me like that? You know, Audrey and I, we used to be inseparable. Despite the 4-year age difference, she was my little shadow, and I took my older sister role seriously. I braided her hair, defended her from bullies, kept her secrets safe. We'd whisper dreams to each other during thunderstorms, huddled under blanket forts, our matching smiles illuminated by a flashlight. She'd hold the ladder while I climbed trees, I'd help her practice dance routines. It was always understood, we'd stand beside each other on our wedding days. "When you get married, I want to wear blue," she'd declared when she was 12, planning my hypothetical wedding. "And when you get married, I'll wear whatever hideous bridesmaid dress you choose," I'd promised, tossing a pillow at her giggling form. We grew up in this brick colonial in an affluent Boston suburb where appearances mattered more than anything else. My parents, Elizabeth and William Wilson, lived for community standing and traditional success. Dad was a corporate attorney, Mom volunteered on prestigious community boards, hosting dinner parties neighbors talked about for weeks. They had a clear vision for their daughters: prestigious colleges, respectable careers, suitable husbands from similar backgrounds. Audrey? She followed that script perfectly. Boston College, communications major, prominent PR firm. She joined the right clubs, made the right friends, dated men my parents approved of. She called home twice a week, showed up for every Sunday dinner. Her Instagram looked like a preppy clothing catalog: tennis matches, charity galas, brunches with girlfriends in matching headbands. Me? I took a different path. Art captivated me from childhood. Despite my parents' insistence it remained just a hobby, I pursued it professionally. After Rhode Island School of Design, not their preferred Ivy League choices, I moved to New York City to establish myself as an artist. My tiny Brooklyn apartment with mismatched furniture and paint-splattered floors horrified my mother during her single visit. My unconventional friends, unpredictable income, and tendency to speak my mind at family gatherings basically cemented my position as the family disappointment. "When are you going to get a real job, with benefits?" became my father's standard holiday greeting. "Those tattoos are going to look terrible when you're older," my mother would add, tracing the watercolor floral design on my forearm. "At least Audrey understands responsibility," they'd inevitably conclude, while my sister would offer sympathetic glances that grew less frequent over time. The geographic distance between New York and Boston was nothing compared to the emotional chasm that developed after college. Our calls became less frequent, our texts more superficial. Audrey's life revolved around Boston's social circles, mine centered on New York's art community. We still connected during holidays, but even then, I noticed her gradually adopting our parents' critical tone when discussing my life choices. Then Audrey met James Hamilton 2 years ago at a charity gala. That's when our already fragile connection truly began to unravel. James came from old Boston money, worked in his family's investment firm. He embodied everything my parents valued: pedigree, wealth, conformity. 6 months after they started dating, I was summoned home for a special family dinner. "James is wonderful," my mother gushed, setting the formal dining table with the wedding china. "His family belongs to the same country club as the Prescotts." That evening, I watched Audrey transform around James. Her normally warm laugh became a practiced giggle. She interrupted me whenever I mentioned my art or my New York friends. When I told a harmless story about our childhood tree-climbing adventures, she quickly changed the subject. "Audrey was always the sensible one," my father told James, patting my sister's hand. Samantha has always been our free spirit. The way he said free spirit made it sound like a terminal diagnosis. James regarded me with polite disinterest, his eyes flickering with something resembling disapproval when I mentioned my recent gallery showing. When I asked about his work, he gave rehearsed answers about market trends without revealing anything personal. "You must visit our place on Nantucket sometime," he told my parents, pointedly excluding me. Audrey remained silent. The engagement announcement came 2 months later via a family email chain. I called Audrey immediately, genuinely happy for her despite my reservations about James. "I'm so excited for you," I said. "Thanks, Sam," she replied, her voice oddly formal. "It's going to be a whirlwind with planning. I'm here to help however you need," I offered. "Just put me to work." "Oh, that's sweet," she hesitated. "But James's mother has a planner already. And honestly, it might be hard for you to help from New York." I ignored the warning sign and asked the obvious question, when should I be looking at bridesmaid dresses? The uncomfortable pause should have told me everything. "We're still figuring out the wedding party," she answered vaguely. "James has a lot of sisters and cousins, so we're trying to balance things." A week later, I discovered via Instagram that Audrey had already selected her 6 bridesmaids, James's 3 sisters, 2 of her college roommates, and our cousin Kayla. Matching champagne flutes and bride tribe sashes were prominently displayed in photos where everyone looked perfectly coordinated in cream-colored dresses. The caption read, "So blessed to have these women standing beside me on my special day. #BrideTribe, #blessed, #complete. Complete. Without me." I texted her a simple, "Congrats on finalizing your bridal party," with a heart emoji, swallowing my hurt. "Thanks. Didn't want to burden you with bridesmaid duties when you're so busy and far away." "You understand," she replied. I did not understand, but I pretended I did. Over the following months, wedding updates came primarily through my mother's smug phone calls or social media posts I wasn't directly tagged in. I learned about the venue, the dress fitting, the elaborate shower thrown by James's mother, all secondhand. Each time I called Audrey, she was rushing between appointments or about to meet James's family for something important. When no formal invitation arrived 6 weeks before the wedding date, I finally texted her directly. "Hey, just checking about your wedding invitation. Planning to request time off work soon." "Of course, you're invited," she replied. Must have gotten lost in the mail. It's June 15th at Bellevue Country Club. Ceremony at 4. Relief washed over me. Despite everything, my sister wanted me at her wedding. I immediately requested time off, booked an overpriced flight, reserved a hotel room, and spent more than I could afford on a navy blue dress that perfectly complied with the formal dress code. I bought them an absurdly expensive crystal vase from their registry and even scheduled a hair appointment in Boston to ensure I'd meet my mother's standards. "This will be a chance to reconnect with Audrey," I told my roommate Jenna as I packed. "Maybe seeing her happy will soften everyone up. Family is family, right?" Jenna looked unconvinced. "Just be prepared for their usual comments, Sam. Don't let them ruin your weekend." "It'll be fine," I insisted, carefully wrapping the crystal vase. "It's a wedding. Everyone's happy at weddings." That optimism carried me through my flight, the tedious rental car counter, the drive to my hotel. It sustained me through a restless night. And the next morning, as I carefully applied makeup, it remained. Until I arrived at Bellevue Country Club, admiring the manicured grounds and impressive stone facade. That optimism evaporated the moment I approached the entrance and saw my parents' faces. Their expressions were a clear barrier. "Dad, what do you mean I'm not on the guest list?" I clutched my invitation, the details Audrey had texted me, trying to maintain composure. There must be some mistake. My father straightened his already impeccable tie, eyes darting to nearby guests who were starting to notice. "There's no mistake, Samantha. Your name isn't on the approved list." But Audrey told me, please don't make a scene, my mother whispered urgently, her floral perfume suffocating. People are watching. I don't care who's watching. This is my sister's wedding. My voice rose despite my best intentions. I took time off work. I flew here. I bought this dress and this gift because Audrey specifically told me to come. My father's jaw tightened, the muscle visibly clenching. Audrey specifically requested you not attend. Those were her exact words. The statement hit like a physical blow. I actually stepped backward, my heel wobbling on the brick pathway. That's not possible. She texted me the details herself. Whatever you think she said, my father's voice dropped to a harsh whisper, the reality is that you are not welcome here today. This is James and Audrey's perfect day, and they don't need your unpredictability. My unpredictability? I repeated, disbelief cracking my voice. I'm her sister. Elizabeth? William? There you are. A woman's voice called from behind my parents. James's mother, Patricia Hamilton, approached in a designer suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. Her calculating eyes assessed me from head to toe. Is everything all right here? Perfectly fine, Patricia, my mother replied with forced brightness. Samantha was just leaving. I am not leaving until I speak with Audrey. I stood my ground, though my knees felt weak. She invited me herself. Patricia's surgically tightened face barely moved as she frowned. I handled the final guest list personally with Audrey, and I can assure you your name was not on it. Security is very strict here at Bellevue. As if summoned by her words, 2 men in suits appeared nearby, trying to look casual while clearly monitoring our interaction. One touched his earpiece. You called security on me? Your own daughter? I stared at my parents in disbelief. We didn't, my mother said quickly. It's standard procedure here. Is that standard procedure, too? Turning away your daughter from her sister's wedding? The gift box trembled in my hands. Patricia Hamilton's eyes narrowed. I should check on the bride. Audrey is so anxious to have everything perfect today. Her emphasis on perfect felt deliberate as she glided away, already speaking into her phone. I fumbled for my own phone, scrolling to Audrey's number while fighting back tears. The call went straight to voicemail. I texted, I'm here at the venue, but Mom and Dad won't let me in. Please come talk to me. The message showed delivered, but remained unread. She's busy getting ready, Samantha, my father's voice softened marginally, perhaps recognizing the pain on my face. This is her day. She's my only sister, I said, hating how my voice broke. I have a right to be here. Rights. My father's momentary softness vanished. What about Audrey's right to have the wedding she wants without worrying about what unpredictable thing you might say or do? Without your alternative friends making James's family uncomfortable? I came alone. I'm dressed appropriately. What exactly are you afraid I'll do? Before either could answer, I heard a dismissive snort nearby. James's father stood with several other men. That's the problematic sister, he said, not bothering to lower his voice. The artist. He made my profession sound like a communicable disease. My phone buzzed. For a moment, hope surged that it was Audrey. Instead, I saw my cousin Kayla's name. OMG, are you outside? I just heard James's mom telling security not to let you in no matter what. The realization that this wasn't a misunderstanding, but a deliberate exclusion, made my stomach clench. I looked up to see one security guard approaching, while another spoke into his radio. Ma'am, I'll need you to return to the public parking area, the first guard said with rehearsed politeness. These are my parents, I said, gesturing wildly. That's my sister getting married. Nevertheless, we've been informed you're not on the approved guest list. His tone left no room for argument. My mother touched my arm lightly. Samantha, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. A memory surfaced suddenly. The awkward family dinner 3 weeks ago. When I'd mentioned being excited about Audrey's wedding, my parents had exchanged glances, and my sister had become intensely interested in her salad. The conversation had abruptly shifted to James's promotion. I had attributed their behavior to typical family awkwardness, but now I understood. It had been guilt. "How long have you all known I wasn't invited?" I asked, my voice unnaturally calm. My parents' silence answered for them. "Miss Wilson, I need you to come with me now," the security guard insisted more firmly. Guests openly stared now. Some whispered behind manicured hands. I recognized faces from childhood, neighbors, family friends, relatives. All watching my humiliation without intervention. The weight of their judgment, coupled with my family's betrayal, became unbearable. "Fine," I said, thrusting the wrapped gift toward my startled mother. "Give this to Audrey. Tell her. Actually, never mind. She clearly doesn't care what I have to say." I turned and walked away, dignity barely intact. Security followed at a discreet distance. Once in my rental car, safely hidden behind tinted windows, I allowed myself to break down. Rain began to fall, gentle at first, then intensifying to match my tears. I sat watching droplets race down the windshield while guests hurried inside, sheltered by attendants with country club emblazoned umbrellas. "Perfect weather for a perfect day," I muttered to myself, hands gripping the steering wheel, though the engine remained off. The sister I protected and loved throughout childhood was getting married mere 100 yards away, and I wasn't allowed to witness it. My phone buzzed again with another text from Kayla. "This is so messed up. Do you want me to come out there?" I appreciated her offer, but couldn't bear more pity. "No," I sent back. "Stay. Someone should see Audrey get married. Take pictures, of course. But seriously, Sam, something weird is going on. No one will say why you're not invited. It's like they've created some big secret about you." The rain intensified, drumming against the car roof like accusatory fingers. I rested my forehead against the cool steering wheel and wondered how my family could have become so unrecognizable. Or, perhaps more accurately, I had failed to see who they truly were all along. Back in my hotel room, I scrolled through increasingly disturbing texts from Kayla, my only ally in this nightmare. "James's mom keeps making these weird comments about family stability whenever anyone asks about you. Your mom told Mrs. Jenkins you couldn't make it because of health reasons with this super significant look. Found the wedding program. No mention of you anywhere. Not even in the special thanks section where they listed like everyone else." The final text included a photo that made my stomach lurch, the wedding party assembled for pictures, my parents flanking Audrey in her elaborate white gown. Everyone smiling as if their family were complete. As if I didn't exist. I tossed my phone aside and curled up on the hotel bed, still wearing my carefully chosen dress. A memory surfaced with painful clarity. Audrey, at 14, pinky finger extended solemnly. "Promise we'll always be there for each other no matter what." She'd asked after a particularly vicious fight with our parents about her curfew. I'd stood up for her, absorbing our father's anger so she wouldn't have to. "Promise," I'd responded, linking my finger with hers. Sisters before misters. Family above all. What had happened to that sister? When had she become someone who could exclude me from the most important day of her life without even the courtesy of a direct conversation? The hotel phone's shrill ring startled me. For a wild moment, I hoped it might be Audrey, coming to her senses. Instead, I heard Amanda Lewis, my mother's oldest friend, who'd known me since childhood. "Samantha, I just heard what happened. I can't believe Elizabeth and William would do this to you." "Believe it," I said flatly. Apparently, I didn't make the cut for my only sister's wedding. Amanda's side carried decades of familiarity with my family dynamics. "There's something you should know." I've been hearing rumors, and I wouldn't normally repeat gossip, but under the circumstances. My grip tightened on the receiver. What rumors? James's family. They've been telling people you have substance abuse issues, that you're unstable. Elizabeth didn't correct them when I heard it at the rehearsal dinner. She just gave that martyred look of hers and said something about supporting you through your challenges. The room seemed to tilt. That's insane. I've never had substance problems. I don't even drink much. I know that, honey. Anyone who actually knows you knows that. But the Hamiltons are influential, and Audrey seems determined to fit into their world at any cost, including erasing her sister. My voice cracked. James convinced Audrey you might cause a scene or embarrass her. He mentioned something about your bohemian lifestyle being incompatible with their social circle. I laughed bitterly. My bohemian lifestyle consists of working 60-hour weeks between my art and my gallery job, living with a roommate because New York rent is impossible, and occasionally getting Thai food delivered when I'm too exhausted to cook. Real wild stuff. For what it's worth, I don't think Audrey came up with this exclusion on her own, Amanda added. That boy has been isolating her from anyone who doesn't fit his image of the perfect society wife. After thanking Amanda, I reluctantly opened Instagram. Wedding photos were already appearing, professionally shot and perfectly staged. Audrey looked radiant. One caption read, "Surrounded by our entire loving family as we begin our journey together. #HamiltonEver #entire loving family." The words burned. I switched to Facebook and found more guest photos, including one where my absence was conspicuously unmentioned in the comments. Beautiful family portrait. The Wilsons and Hamiltons unite. What a perfect match. Audrey looks just like Elizabeth did at her wedding. Not a single "Where's Sam?" Not one person questioning the missing sister. With shaking hands, I opened my laptop and checked my email archives, searching for any wedding-related communications. What I found only deepened the betrayal. A message from my mother from 11 months ago mentioned Audrey and James thinking about a June wedding. Another from my father 8 months ago referenced wedding planning in full swing. The timeline was clear. While Audrey was texting me about possibly being too busy with work to visit New York, she was actively planning her wedding. While my parents were vaguely referencing family events next summer, they were finalizing details for a celebration I wouldn't be part of. The most damning evidence came from Audrey herself, a casual email from 4 months ago. "So busy with life. What's new with you?" I'd responded with details about my art show and asked about wedding plans. Her reply, "Nothing finalized yet. We'll keep you posted when we know more." She'd been lying. They'd all been lying, creating an elaborate fiction to keep me believing I was included while systematically ensuring I wasn't. My phone buzzed with a new text from Kayla. "Reception starting. I feel awful being here when you can't be. What they did is so wrong." I sent back, "Not your fault. Just tell me one thing. Was my name ever on any guest list? Even a preliminary one?" Her response came quickly. I just asked the wedding planner, pretending I was confused about seating. She checked her records and said, "Your name never appeared on any version of the list from day one." "I'm so sorry, Sam." The confirmation hit like a physical blow. I curled around a pillow in my hotel room, my body shaking with silent sobs. It wasn't just that I'd been excluded. I'd been erased from my family's narrative altogether. My parents, who should have advocated for me, had instead helped construct the lie. My sister, who had once promised to always stand by me, had decided I wasn't worthy of witnessing her most important day. I'd lost not just an invitation, but my entire concept of family. Every childhood memory now required re-examination. Every family photo on my apartment wall suddenly felt like fiction. If they could exclude me so completely from this milestone, had I ever truly belonged? In that sterile hotel room, surrounded by the debris of my preparation for an event I wasn't welcome to attend, I reached the lowest point of my adult life. The family I thought I had didn't exist. The sister I thought I knew was a stranger. The parents who should have loved me unconditionally had instead placed conditions I could never satisfy. I was completely alone. Morning arrived with swollen eyes and a hollowness in my chest that made breathing difficult. The wedding was over. Audrey was officially Mrs. Hamilton, celebrating at some exclusive breakfast, or perhaps already departing for her honeymoon on James's family yacht. My parents had successfully maintained their perfect family image, minus one inconvenient daughter, and I was left to pick up the pieces of my shattered understanding of family. I avoided the mirror, knowing my reflection would confirm what I felt, destroyed. My phone showed 7 missed calls from New York friends who'd received my incoherent texts last night. The local news website featured a society page announcement about the magical union of 2 prominent Boston families with a professional photo of the beaming couple. I closed the browser. After a scalding shower that couldn't wash away the humiliation, I headed to the lobby to check out a day earlier than planned. The elevator doors opened, and I nearly collided with Mrs. Henderson, my high school art teacher. "Samantha Wilson," she exclaimed, genuine warmth in her voice. Then her expression shifted as she took in my appearance. "Oh dear, are you all right?" I attempted a smile that felt more like a grimace. "Just checking out, heading back to New York." Her eyes narrowed with concern. "I thought your sister's wedding was yesterday. Aren't there usually brunches and things the day after?" The simple question cracked my fragile composure. Before I could stop myself, the entire humiliating story spilled out in the hotel lobby, being turned away, learning about the deliberate exclusion, discovering the lies that had spanned months. Mrs. Henderson guided me to a quiet corner, listening without interruption. When I finally ran out of words, she placed a weathered hand over mine. "What they did was cruel, Samantha. Unforgivably cruel. But it says everything about them and nothing about your worth. Then why does it feel like I'm the one who did something wrong?" I whispered. "Because that's what families like yours do. They make the truth-tellers feel like the problem." She squeezed my hand. "I've taught in this town for 35 years. I've watched families like yours operate. They're so concerned with appearances that they'll sacrifice authentic relationships to maintain the facade. But Audrey and I were close once. We really were." Mrs. Henderson nodded. "I remember. You were inseparable. But sometimes people choose the path of least resistance. Standing up to family pressure requires tremendous courage, especially when there's money and status involved." Her perspective was the first that had made any sense since this nightmare began. We talked for nearly an hour. Her gentle wisdom provided the first moments of clarity I'd experienced since being turned away. "What will you do now?" she asked as we prepared to part. "Go home to New York, I guess. Try to move forward somehow." She hugged me tightly. "Your talent and your honesty will serve you well, Samantha. Those are far more valuable than social standing or family connections. Never forget that." Strengthened by this unexpected kindness, I decided to make one final stop before leaving Boston, my parents' house, where I still had a few belongings stored in what was once my bedroom. I hoped to slip in and out while they attended post-wedding festivities, avoiding another confrontation. The house looked exactly as it always had, perfectly maintained colonial, precision-trimmed hedges, seasonal flowers. I used my old key, half expecting the locks to have been changed along with my family status. My childhood bedroom was now unrecognizable. The walls had been repainted from my chosen blue to a neutral beige. Most of my posters and photos were gone. Boxes labeled storage occupied the floor. The twin bed was covered with plastic bins of Christmas decorations. I'd been literally erased from the physical space I once occupied. Opening my closet, I found most of my remaining belongings had been consolidated into 2 cardboard boxes labeled Sam in my mother's precise handwriting. Yearbooks, childhood art projects, photo albums, efficiently packed away as if in preparation for my complete removal from family memory. As I sorted through the items, deciding what was worth taking, I discovered my parents had discarded several sentimental pieces, awards from art competitions they'd never attended, journals filled with teenage thoughts, and a handmade quilt from my grandmother, who had always encouraged my creativity. The casual disposal of these treasures felt like another deliberate wound. I was carefully wrapping a small sculpture I'd made in high school when my phone rang. Taylor, my best friend since college, was calling for the third time that morning. Finally! I've been worried sick since your text last night. What the actual hell, Sam, they didn't let you into your own sister's wedding? Hearing Taylor's fierce indignation released something in me. I sank to the floor of my former bedroom and told her everything, from the moment of rejection at the venue to discovering my room transformed into storage space. That's not a family, that's a cult, Taylor declared. Seriously, who does that to their own daughter? Their own sister? Apparently mine. Well, fuck them. No, seriously, fuck all of them. You deserve so much better than people who would treat you this way. Taylor's anger on my behalf felt like a warm blanket around my cold shock. You still have family, Sam. It's just not the one you were born into. It's the one you've created. Me, Jenna, Miguel, all of us who love you exactly as you are. Her words triggered a memory from therapy sessions I briefly attended after college. Family isn't always blood. It's the people in your life who want you in theirs. I don't know how to process this, I admitted, staring at the beige walls that had once displayed my artwork. By coming home. Your real home. With people who actually appreciate your magnificent, creative, honest self. That'll help you through this. When we hung up, I sat surrounded by the remnants of my childhood. Considering Taylor's perspective, she was right. While I'd been desperately seeking approval from people incapable of giving it, I'd built a supportive community in New York who valued the very qualities my biological family rejected. I packed only what truly mattered, a few childhood photos, my grandmother's handwritten recipes, and a small sketchbook Audrey had given me for my 16th birthday, inscribed to my amazing sister. Never stop creating. The rest I left behind. A deliberate unburdening. Before leaving, I made an impulsive decision. Instead of flying back to New York, I'd drive the rental car, taking a winding route along the coast. I needed time and space to process before returning to my life. I sent a quick text to Jenna about my changed plans, canceled my flight, and extended the car rental. As I pulled away from my childhood home, I experienced not the crushing grief of the previous day, but something unexpected, a quiet determination to reclaim my narrative from those who had tried to edit me out of it. The first decision made from strength rather than pain felt significant, like placing a single stone in what would become the foundation of my rebuilt sense of self. I couldn't control my family's actions, but I could control my response. I couldn't force them to include me, but I could choose who to include in my own life going forward. With Boston receding in my rearview mirror, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not closure exactly, but the first fragile seedling of possibility breaking through the scorched earth of betrayal. I had just finished loading the last of my chosen belongings into the rental car when another vehicle pulled into the driveway. My parents' Mercedes, returning far earlier than I'd expected. For a moment, I considered making a quick escape, avoiding another painful confrontation. But something inside me had shifted. I deserved answers, not more evasion. I stood my ground beside my packed car as my parents emerged, their faces registering surprise and then immediate discomfort at finding me there. They were still in their wedding finery from what I assumed was the post-wedding brunch. Samantha, my mother said, her voice unnaturally high. We didn't expect you to still be in town. Before I could respond, another car pulled up, a sleek black Audi I recognized as James's. To my shock, Audrey emerged from the passenger side, still in a cream-colored dress from some post-wedding event. Our eyes met across the driveway, and she froze, one hand clutching her new husband's arm. What is she doing here? James asked my father, not bothering to address me directly. Something about his tone, the entitled dismissal, as if I were a service worker who had failed to perform adequately, ignited a calm, cold anger within me. I'm collecting my belongings, I said evenly, looking directly at Audrey, whose eyes immediately dropped to the ground. I didn't expect to see the newlyweds. Shouldn't you be boarding a private jet to some exclusive island by now? We're staying at the Hamilton estate on Nantucket tomorrow, my mother interjected nervously. They just came to collect a few things before heading to the hotel for the night. An awkward silence descended as we all stood in the driveway, the absurdity of the situation almost laughable. 24 hours earlier, they had barred me from my sister's wedding. Now, we were making small talk about travel plans. Well, congratulations on your marriage, I said to Audrey, maintaining the same calm tone. I would have told you in person yesterday, but apparently I didn't make the cut for your intimate ceremony of 300 guests. Audrey finally looked up, her expression a mixture of guilt and defensiveness. Sam, it wasn't personal. We just wanted to avoid any potential complications. Complications? I repeated. Is that what I am to you now? A complication? James stepped forward, his arm protectively around my sister. Audrey doesn't need this right now. She's exhausted from the wedding. The wedding I wasn't welcome to attend, despite being the bride's only sister. I turned back to Audrey. At least have the courage to tell me why. After everything we've been through together, you owe me that much. Perhaps we should all go inside, my father suggested, glancing uncomfortably at the neighboring houses where curtains had begun to twitch. No, I said firmly. I'm not going back into that house. Say what you need to say right here. My mother made a distressed sound. Samantha, always so dramatic. This is exactly why, I retorted. Why, Mom? Why you excluded me from my sister's wedding? Why you've been lying to me for months? Why you let James's family spread rumors about me having substance abuse issues? My parents exchanged alarmed glances. Audrey's head snapped up. What rumors? Oh, you didn't know? I laughed, without humor. Your in-laws have been telling people I'm an unstable addict. Apparently, that's the narrative they created to explain my absence. And our parents didn't correct them. We didn't know exactly what was being said, my father interjected quickly. Liar, I said quietly. Amanda Lewis told me she heard it at the rehearsal dinner, and you were right there, nodding sympathetically about my challenges. The only challenge I have is being born into a family that values appearances over honesty and social standing over loyalty. James's face had hardened. Your lifestyle choices reflect on Audrey now. As her husband, I have to protect her reputation. The Hamiltons have standards to maintain. My lifestyle choices? I scoffed. You mean being an artist? Living in New York, having friends who don't summer on Nantucket, among other things? I turned to Audrey, whose eyes had filled with tears. Is that really why, AUD? Because I don't fit the Hamilton mold? Because James decided I might embarrass you? It's not that simple, she whispered. Actually, it is that simple, I countered. You had a choice between standing up for your sister and pleasing your husband's family. You chose them. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. Audrey suddenly burst out. Everything had to be perfect. The Hamiltons have expectations, traditions. They're connected to everyone who matters in Boston. And I don't matter? After everything we've been through together? That's not what I meant. She wiped at her tears, careful not to smudge her makeup. But you've always done whatever you wanted, Sam. You left for New York and never looked back. You didn't care what anyone thought about your choices. Do you have any idea how hard it's been living in your shadow? My shadow? I stared at her in disbelief. I've been the family disappointment since I chose art school over Harvard. How could you possibly be in my shadow? Because you were brave enough to leave, she cried. To build your own life. I've spent my entire life doing what everyone expected, being who everyone wanted me to be. And you just walked away from all of it like it was nothing. The revelation stunned me into momentary silence. My perfect, compliant sister had been envious of my independence. So excluding me from your wedding was what? Punishment for living my own life? It was easier. Okay? Audrey's voice cracked. It was easier to exclude you than fight for you. James's parents made it clear they didn't approve of you. Mom and Dad agreed it would be simpler if you weren't there. Everyone just wanted things to go smoothly. And lying to me for months? Leading me to believe I was invited? Letting me buy a plane ticket, book a hotel, buy a dress, and a gift? Was that easier, too? She had no answer for that. Her gaze dropped once more to her designer shoes. My father stepped forward, his authoritative courtroom voice taking over. What's done is done, Samantha. Creating a scene now won't change anything. It would be best if you just returned to New York and gave everyone some space. Space, I echoed. I've given you nothing but space. I moved hundreds of miles away. I built my own life because there wasn't room for the real me in yours. And still, that wasn't enough distance for you. My mother attempted to take my arm. Darling, you're upset. We understand. No, you don't understand. I interrupted, gently removing her hand. You've never tried to understand me. But I finally understand you. All of you. You're so terrified of authenticity that you would rather lose a daughter and a sister than risk a moment of social discomfort. James scoffed. Always the dramatic artist. Better a dramatic artist than a spineless conformist, I replied calmly. Audrey, I hope your marriage brings you happiness. I truly do. But know this, the same people you're trying so desperately to please would discard you in a heartbeat if you ever stopped fitting their mold. Just like they did to me. That's enough, my father said sharply. You're right, it is. I picked up the last box from the ground and placed it in my car. I didn't come here to cause the scene Audrey was so afraid I'd create at her wedding. I came for my belongings and some closure. I have both now. As I opened my car door, Audrey took a step toward me. Sam, wait. Maybe we can talk later after things settle down. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw not the confident, radiant bride from the wedding photos, but a scared woman who had traded her authenticity for acceptance. I won't be waiting by the phone, I told her quietly. If someday you want a relationship with the real me, not some sanitized version that makes your in-laws comfortable, you know where to find me. But I won't be diminishing myself anymore to accommodate people who see me as an embarrassment. The release of speaking these truths felt physical, as if I'd set down a heavy burden I'd been carrying for years. I got into my car without another word, leaving my stunned family standing in the driveway of the house where I'd grown up, but never truly belonged. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. My parents had already turned toward the house, but Audrey remained, watching my departure. For a brief moment, I thought she might call out or run after me in some dramatic reconciliation scene. She didn't. She simply stood there, James's hand firmly on her elbow, as I turned the corner and disappeared from view. I hadn't caused the scene they feared. I hadn't broken down or begged for inclusion. Instead, I had found my voice and set my boundaries with dignity. For perhaps the first time in my life, I had stood my ground not through rebellion or defiance, but through a deep conviction of my own worth. The road ahead stretched empty and open, a blank canvas of possibility. The coastal highway between Boston and New York offered a different perspective than the quick plane journey I'd originally planned. I stopped frequently during the 2-day drive, at quiet beaches where I collected smooth stones, at small art galleries in Connecticut shore towns, at roadside diners where I ate alone but didn't feel lonely. Each mile created necessary distance between the person my family wanted me to be and the person I actually was. Each sunset over the water reinforced that endings could be beautiful, even when painful. Each morning brought clarity that had been obscured by years of seeking approval from those incapable of giving it. I called Taylor from a small beach in Rhode Island, sitting on a weathered bench facing the Atlantic. "How are you holding up?" she asked, genuine concern in her voice. Surprisingly, okay, I answered, realizing it was true. Something shifted when I finally confronted them. It's like I've been carrying this hope that someday they'd see me. Really see me. Letting go of that hope hurts, but it's also freeing. That's some healthy perspective for someone who was just erased from her sister's wedding. Taylor laughed. "Don't worry," I said, laughing despite myself, "I'm still planning to process this in therapy for the next decade." "As you should. But seriously, Sam, I'm proud of you. Standing up to family is the hardest thing." Throughout the drive, I stopped to sketch in the small notebook I always carried. Not polished work, just raw impressions of emotionally significant moments. The country club entrance where I'd been turned away. My childhood bedroom converted to storage. The final confrontation in the driveway. With each sketch, I reclaimed these painful experiences as part of my story rather than allowing them to define me. When I finally arrived in New York, the familiar chaos of the city embraced me like an old friend. The constant motion, the unapologetic diversity, the celebration of individuality, everything my hometown rejected was what made this place home. My roommate Jenna was waiting with open arms and an open bottle of wine. Unlike my biological family, she asked questions and then actually listened to the answers, her expressions shifting appropriately from outrage to sympathy as I recounted the wedding debacle. "Those people are actual monsters," she declared, refilling my glass. "Who does that to their own daughter? Their own sister?" "People who value what others think more than what's right," I said, surprised by my own insight. "Well, their loss is our gain. We get the real Sam Wilson, not whatever stepped-on version they wanted you to be." The next morning, I woke to the sound of hushed voices and clinking dishes. Opening my bedroom door, I found our small apartment filled with friends. Taylor had driven in from Philadelphia. Miguel had brought breakfast from the Dominican bakery I loved, and several others from my art circle were arranging coffee cups and pastries. "Surprise!" Jenna announced. "We figured you needed a proper welcome home." The simple gesture, friends gathering on a Sunday morning to show support, affected me more deeply than I could express. This was what families should feel like. Acceptance without conditions, support without agenda, love without performance requirements. As we crowded around our tiny kitchen table, conversations flowing naturally between serious discussions of my experience and ridiculous jokes about revenge fantasies, I felt the first genuine happiness since before the wedding disaster. "I've been thinking," Miguel said, sliding a business card across the table. "You should talk to my gallery friend Eliza. She's putting together a show about identity and belonging that would be perfect for your work." I examined the card. Eliza Graham ran a respected gallery in Chelsea that featured emerging artists exploring societal themes. "You think my work would fit? Are you kidding? Your Fractured Reflection series is exactly what she's looking for. Personal yet universal. This whole experience, as terrible as it's been, could fuel some incredible new work." The suggestion sparked something inside me. Throughout my artistic career, I'd often censor myself, creating work that was technically proficient but emotionally safe. What if I channeled this pain into something authentic and powerful? What if I used art to process what words couldn't fully express? The next morning, I called Dr. Martinez, a therapist recommended by a friend months ago, whose number I'd saved but never dialed. To my surprise, she had a cancellation that afternoon. "What brings you in today?" she asked once I was seated in her comfortably worn office chair. "My family excluded me from my sister's wedding and has basically been lying to me for my entire adult life," I said, the bluntness surprising even me. "I need to figure out how to process that without letting it destroy me." Dr. Martinez didn't seem shocked. "That's a significant betrayal. How are you taking care of yourself right now?" The simple question, how are you caring for yourself? Not how could you fix your family? Signaled I'd found the right therapist. Over the following weeks, our sessions became a crucial space for unpacking not just the wedding incident, but the lifetime of conditional acceptance that had preceded it. You've spent years trying to earn love that should have been freely given, she observed during one particularly intense session. What would it look like to stop trying to earn it? That question catalyzed a period of profound change. I began establishing boundaries with my parents' attempts to contact me, responding to messages when I felt emotionally equipped, ignoring them when I didn't. I blocked James on all platforms and limited what Audrey could see of my social media life. I started a dedicated sketchbook for family session drawings, creating immediately after each therapy appointment. Professionally, I took Miguel's advice and contacted Eliza Graham, sharing both my portfolio and, after some hesitation, the personal story behind my newest work. To my amazement, she immediately saw the potential. There's something raw and truthful happening in these new pieces, she said, examining sketches from my road trip that I'd developed into larger works. The Family Silhouette series, especially the negative space where figures should be, is powerful. 2 months after the wedding, Eliza offered me a spot in her upcoming exhibition, Belonging, Identity in a Fractured World. The validation from someone who had no obligation to appreciate my work meant more than any family approval ever had. As summer transitioned to fall, I established new traditions with my chosen family. Sunday brunches with Jenna and our friend circle. Tuesday night life drawing sessions followed by cheap wine at the dive bar around the corner. Monthly gallery crawls with Miguel and his boyfriend. These rituals anchored me as I navigated life without the family connections I'd once thought essential. I changed my appearance in small but significant ways, cutting my hair into a style I'd always wanted but my mother had always criticized, getting a small tattoo of a compass on my wrist to remind myself to follow my own direction. Each change was a reclamation of self-determination. A quiet declaration that I no longer sought external approval. The most surprising development came in October when I met Michael at a gallery opening for a mutual friend. Unlike James, who had evaluated me against some predetermined checklist of acceptability, Michael was genuinely curious about my authentic self. "Tell me more about your creative process," he said on our first date, leaning forward with genuine interest after I'd mentioned my upcoming exhibition. "What drives you to create?" The question was so refreshingly direct, so focused on understanding rather than judging, that I found myself opening up about how art had become my language for processing the world, including recent family trauma. "That's incredibly brave," he responded. "Using pain as creative fuel instead of letting it consume you." His perception of my art, and by extension me, as brave rather than problematic, sparked a connection that developed naturally over the following months. For the first time, I was building a relationship without editing myself to be more acceptable. By the time my exhibition opened in November, I had constructed a life that felt authentically mine. Professional momentum, supportive friendships, a promising new relationship, and therapeutic tools for managing the lingering pain of family rejection. I wasn't healed in any simplistic sense, but I was building something meaningful from the wreckage of old expectations. The night before the gallery opening, I sat in my newly rearranged bedroom, staring at the last family photo I kept displayed, Audrey and me as children, arms around each other on a beach in Cape Cod. Genuine smiles directed at each other rather than the camera. Despite everything, I couldn't bring myself to remove this evidence that we had once truly loved each other before our expectations and social pressures had driven us apart. "I hope you find your way back to yourself someday," I whispered to her image, before turning out the light and preparing for my own moment of professional recognition. One my biological family wouldn't witness, but my chosen family would celebrate with genuine pride. 6 months after being turned away from my sister's wedding, I stood in Eliza's gallery surrounded by my work and my chosen family. Family Silhouettes, Presence and Absence had received unexpected critical attention, with an arts writer from The New Yorker calling it a powerful exploration of belonging and exclusion rendered with technical skill and emotional authenticity. The success felt validating, but secondary to the personal growth the work represented. Each piece contained some element of my family story: negative spaces where figures should stand, fragmented portraits with missing pieces, translucent layers suggesting memories being rewritten. Creating them had been painful, but purifying. Transforming private anguish into public connection as visitors shared their own experiences of family complexity. "I can't believe that's my girlfriend on the gallery wall," Michael said, appearing beside me with 2 champagne flutes. In the 4 months we'd been dating, he'd shown nothing but genuine interest in understanding my authentic self, rather than trying to reshape me into some predetermined ideal. "Sometimes I can't believe it either," I admitted, accepting the champagne. A year ago, I was still seeking approval from people who were never going to give it. Taylor joined us, linking her arm through mine. To Sam, finding her voice and sharing it with the world, she toasted, raising her glass. And to our horrible family for providing such excellent artistic material. We laughed. The humorous sign of healing. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something I could carry without being crushed by its weight. That evening, after the successful opening, I returned to my apartment to find an unexpected envelope in my mail. The Boston postmark and my sister's handwriting sent an immediate pulse of anxiety through me. Inside was a card with a simple message: "Sam, I saw an article about your gallery show online. The work looks incredible. I always knew you were talented, even when I didn't have the courage to say so. Things with James aren't what I expected. His family's expectations are suffocating, and I'm starting to understand what you meant in our last conversation. I miss my sister. If you're ever open to talking, I'd like to try to rebuild some kind of relationship on your terms, not mine or anyone else's. Love, Audrey." I sat with the card for a long time, emotions swirling. Part of me wanted to dismiss it as too little, too late. Another part recognized the courage it must have taken for Audrey to reach out, especially if her marriage was struggling under the weight of the same expectations that had trapped her. After careful consideration, I composed a measured response: "Audrey, thank you for your note and for acknowledging my work. That means more than you might realize. I'm not ready for family holidays or pretending nothing happened." The wedding exclusion wasn't just hurtful, it was the culmination of a lifetime of conditional acceptance that I'm still processing. If you want to begin a conversation about building a new kind of relationship based on mutual respect and honesty, I'm cautiously open to that, but it would need to be just between us, without our parents' influence or James's family's expectations shaping the interaction. Take care of yourself. Sam. I mailed the letter the next day, setting clear boundaries while leaving open the possibility of reconciliation. Whether Audrey could meet me in that honest space remained to be seen, but my response came from strength rather than desperation for family connection. In the months that followed, I continued my therapy with Dr. Martinez, gradually developing a more nuanced understanding of my parents' limitations. Their obsession with social standing and conformity hadn't begun with me. They themselves were products of rigid upbringings where approval was conditional and appearances paramount. Understanding the origins of their behavior doesn't excuse it, Dr. Martinez emphasized during one session. But it might help you release some of the pain. I think I'm realizing they did the best they could with the emotional tools they had, I replied. The problem was, their best wasn't enough for a child who needed unconditional acceptance. And that's not your failure. It's theirs. This perspective shift allowed me to view my parents with more compassion without accepting their treatment as deserved. They were flawed humans who lacked the capacity to provide what I needed, not malicious villains intent on causing pain. This understanding didn't erase the hurt, but it helped me carry it differently. My relationship with Michael deepened as winter turned to spring. Unlike previous relationships where I'd carefully edited myself to seem more acceptable, with Michael, I could be authentically imperfect. When he first joined me for dinner with my artist friends, he fit seamlessly into the chosen family I'd built, appreciating their quirks and contributions to my life. "I love how you've created your own traditions," he commented after a particularly chaotic but joy-filled Sunday brunch at our apartment. "Everyone brings something unique to the table, literally and figuratively." I needed to reconstruct what family means to me, I explained. These people love me without conditions or expectations. They celebrate my successes without competition and support me through failures without judgment. That's what real family should be, he said simply. As my professional success continued to grow with a second exhibition planned and a teaching opportunity at a community arts program, I established clear boundaries around sharing these achievements. My parents occasionally sent formal emails inquiring about my career progress, which I answered factually, but without seeking approval. Audrey and I had begun a cautious text exchange, primarily focused on her growing recognition of the family dynamics that had shaped us both. James's mother criticized my choice of charity work yesterday, she wrote in one particularly revealing message. It made me think of all the times I watched Mom and Dad criticize your art. I never stood up for you. I'm sorry for that. The acknowledgement, while healing, highlighted how different our paths had been. Audrey was just beginning to question the values that had been instilled in us, while I had spent years building an identity independent of family approval. The gap between us couldn't be bridged by apologies alone. But her growing awareness suggested a foundation for a different kind of relationship might be possible someday. During the winter holidays, I declined my parents' perfunctory invitation to Boston and instead hosted a chosen family Christmas in my apartment. Friends brought dishes representing their own family traditions or invented entirely new ones. We exchanged thoughtful, inexpensive gifts that demonstrated attention to each other's authentic selves rather than social obligations. The contrast between this warm, accepting celebration and the tense, performance-based holidays of my childhood couldn't have been starker. As I looked around at the mismatched furniture holding friends from diverse backgrounds, all laughing and belonging exactly as they were, I recognized the profound wisdom I'd gained through the painful journey of the past year. Rejection had actually been redirection. Being excluded from my sister's wedding had forced me to confront the conditional nature of my family's love and build connections based on acceptance rather than performance. The pain of family rejection would likely never completely disappear. Certain milestones would always carry a sting of absence: future weddings, births, graduations, where family connections would be assumed but not present in traditional form. Yet I had discovered that family could be created rather than merely inherited, chosen rather than assigned, built on authentic connection rather than genetic obligation. What are you thinking about? You look so serious suddenly, Michael asked, finding me alone in the kitchen during a quiet moment in the celebration. Just reflecting on how sometimes the most painful experiences lead us where we need to go, I replied. A year ago, I thought being excluded from Audrey's wedding was the worst thing that could happen to me. Now I see it was the push I needed to build a life based on authentic connection rather than performance. He nodded thoughtfully. The universe has strange ways of redirecting us sometimes. I'm learning that rejection is often protection, I said. It hurts when people can't accept you as you are. But their rejection protects you from a lifetime of trying to be someone you're not. As we rejoined our gathering, I carried this hard-won wisdom. True belonging never requires you to betray yourself. Family, whether biological or chosen, should expand rather than diminish your sense of self. Love that comes with conditions isn't really love at all, but approval, which is an entirely different currency. The wedding exclusion that had once devastated me had ultimately freed me to create a life of genuine connection. The sister who had once been my closest ally might someday become a friend on new, more authentic terms. The parents who couldn't see my value had inadvertently pushed me toward people who could. In the end, being kept from my sister's wedding had given me an unexpected gift: the courage to stop seeking acceptance where it wouldn't be freely given, and to build a life where I didn't need to earn belonging through performance or pretense. I had learned what so many before me have discovered through pain: sometimes being excluded from where you thought you belonged leads you exactly where you need to be. Have you ever experienced a painful moment that ultimately led to positive change in your life? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need this message today. Remember, your worth isn't determined by others' opinions. It's inherent, unchangeable, and absolutely real. Thanks for listening.